Hello, welcome to Triggered Care. I'm Alex. Today I'm talking about early recovery, especially for CPTSD. In my first video I talk about getting diagnosed, and in this video I'm going to talk about my personal experience with the early recovery days. So I'm talking about the first year of diagnosis, of really figuring out what's going on, why your mental state is always in peril. Before you get to recovery, of course, you gotta choose recovery. And for me, that choice came along with I was married. I didn't want to kill myself and leave my husband heartbroken. So I chose to go to therapy instead. We had gotten married a couple years prior. We got pregnant, but then we lost the baby and stuck together through that. But I was in a really bad 2-year slump of just really bad PTSD storms all the time, but I didn't know what they were. I thought I was lazy and crazy, and I kind of hermited a lot. And then it came to this point where I was so disgusted with the way I lived that I didn't want to live anymore. But I loved my husband so much, and he had already gotten me through so much. It's like I can't let him down. I can't let myself down. Something has to change. And that's when I decided to go to therapy and actually pursue getting better. And then after about 4 or 6 months after I started going to therapy and started getting better slowly and having, epiphanies here and there, I got pregnant, and that upped my motivation crazily high because I wanted to be somewhat solid for my child when he arrived. So I did a lot of condensed recovery work in that year before he was born. What sort of work is recovery work? Well, for me, it was going to my therapy appointments. It was researching the terms that my therapist was talking to me about. One of the first terms she suggested I look up was narcissistic abuse. And once I did that, I followed the thread to a big woven blanket of, oh my God, there's other people like me. Oh my Jesus, people can relate to me, and people have a similar experience that I do. Like, it was just astounding to find out that I wasn't alone. And those early days of recovery, I mean, they are complicated, they are emotional, they are draining, but they're also extremely exciting, especially when you first find validation and you first find the people that you connect with where you're like, oh my God, that sounds almost exactly like my family. And this makes sense. And I also suffer from disordered thinking and compulsions and losing track of time and panic attacks. All the symptoms line up, and it's really nice to find your tribe of people that you can relate to. Now, down the early recovery road that first year, there's going to be tons and tons of little epiphanies. What I mean by little epiphanies is little realizations. Well, not little, just your perception shifting from childhood to adulthood, looking at the same situation but having a different reaction to it. So as a kid, what was going on, you might have had a shame reaction or a guilt reaction. But then looking back on it as an adult, you have more of a sad reaction or an empathetic view towards yourself of, oh my goodness, I shouldn't have been there. That shouldn't have been done to me. Instead of, oh, I deserve this. And those little epiphanies, I mean, they start gathering up fast when you actually stop and start thinking about things. They start piling on, and it slowly helps kind of make enough room in your brain for the logic to exist that you are worth something and you are important. And those two things are true. But it takes a long time of thinking and analyzing and epiphanies and discoveries to really allow yourself to feel that for yourself. And what happens then, once you have so many little epiphanies, you'll also have the big epiphanies. And what the big epiphanies are there shifts in your self-esteem. There shifts in your confidence. There shifts in your belief in yourself towards the positive. Because before recovery, oftentimes survivors are living amongst the negative, thriving in the negative, and not thriving in a good way, but that's where you get your energy. That's the people you surround yourself with. That's the environment you're in, because it feels familiar and it feels right. But in all reality, that's just, you were conditioned like Pavlov's dog to drool whenever the bell rang. You were conditioned to believe, oh, if I'm uncomfortable, that's right. If I have to serve in a certain way, if I have to talk in a certain way, like, that's just the way life is, you know. And those people are the people that get me. Because other times, you know, if you're around healthy people, a lot of times I'll go mute because I don't know what to say, because I'm not used to being in those environments. They don't feel comfortable to me. At least they felt a lot more uncomfortable to me, especially early in recovery. So those big epiphanies are big, like you feel it in your core. You can feel your foundation getting repaired. A lot of other things that you realize through recovery is your part in a relationship and the other people's part that they have played in your life relationship-wise. So your relationship with your parents, your relationships with your friends. As boundaries go up, as you get more self-esteem and more self-awareness, and you're feeling better, and you're doing better, and you're having less bad days, you are going to notice that some of your loved ones, it may be friends, it may be family, who you surround yourself with may have bad habits relationship-wise. And maybe you've been enabling those bad habits because that's what you have done forever. And now that you're learning about your old habits of enabling or avoiding or whatever it is to not confront the issue, there's gonna come a point where it's gonna be so uncomfortable being around toxicity and being around blatant bad behavior that's expected to go unnoticed that you will have to speak up. And then there was different reactions that they can have to that. Not everybody is the same. In my experience, there are 3 different reactions that people can have to that. And those reactions are anger, indifference, and encouragement. And depending on how they react and how often they react like that when you start putting up boundaries for your mental health, it really shows you who you should keep around and who you can't keep around, at least for recovery's sake. If you need time to recover, give yourself that time. Give yourself a safe space with safe people around who will encourage you. You need safety to feel better. You need safety to repair what was never fixed in the first place. So if somebody is reacting angrily to your boundaries, if you go, I'm sorry, but I can't help you out tonight, I'm having a bad night, and they react angrily, that's not, oh, well, cut them off because they were angry. No. Sometimes people get angry when plans change. I'm one of those people. If all of a sudden plans change last second, my brain get jostled and I'll be mad for a second. It goes away, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna go around yelling at everybody. So maybe not off the first reaction, but if it's a repeated offense of every time you put down boundaries, they act like you're offending them or you're you don't love them enough, you aren't there enough for them, and all of this. When you're first putting up those boundaries, that's a good sign of, hey, maybe we should take a break, because I'm experimenting with boundaries and I need safe relationships to do that with. And this relationship is not allowing me to put up those boundaries in a comfortable way, so I can't participate in it right now. And those conversations are hard as poop. I know, those conversations are not fun to have. But you get used to having those conversations. Because in the realities of life, we attract people who are high intensity. And sometimes those people are not well intentioned. Or maybe those people just aren't knowledgeable about mental health. So they have very bad toxic habits. And it's not your job to judge them, but it's also not your job to cater to them when you're trying to get better yourself. The next reaction, indifference. That one's not bad or good. It's like pretty neutral. Or indifferent, if you will. Like, that's when you put up boundaries, they're just like, oh, okay. And usually that happens with people who already have a mental health thing going for themselves. They're confident, they have self-esteem. So somebody putting up healthy boundaries to them, they're gonna react like that's normal. They probably came from a normal household, or they've done a lot of recovery work themselves and they're just knowledgeable of, oh, okay, I understand boundaries. So those people, not a worry. You don't need to think about them really. I mean, that's awesome that you have people already in your life who have healthy boundaries and will respect yours once you put them up if you need to work on that. And the last reaction, which is encouragement. And this one is really, really nice to have. Because sometimes you put a boundary up and then you get a second feeling about it and you might get some guilt with it, especially if you had a trigger earlier that day. And, depending on the weather and the environment, putting up boundaries can be triggering. So if you have that one or two loved ones in your life that you can talk to about this and be like, hey, when I'm putting up my boundaries, would you mind encouraging me? Would you mind not only saying, oh yeah, sure, that's okay, but being like, I'm proud of you for telling me what you want. To reinforce that habit, to reinforce that thought process for when you do make boundaries, to know, hey, it's not bad to make boundaries for yourself. It's not bad to say no to something if you can't do it mentally, physically, whatever is going on. It's okay. And it's also okay to go and help out when you can. That's the thing. If you're feeling good and like you can help out, that's awesome. If you're feeling bad and like you can't help out, that's also okay. You need to take care of yourself, especially if you're suffering from C-PTSD symptoms. Obviously, you have gone through a lot of stress. You need to allow yourself to relax and to put up a little barrier around yourself and be like, you know what? I need to focus on myself for a bit and take care of myself. Along with noticing toxicity more, it can get overwhelming, especially in today's climate of people just arguing and debating what seems like 24/7. It can be very overwhelming to be in the midst of recovery and then having all these outside triggers. So, throughout recovery, throughout your research, throughout your finding validation, have mental breaks. Have something fun, whether it's video games, reading a book, drawing, something unrelated to mental health. Have some alone time just for you to relax. Because recovery, it is really exciting to start learning stuff, but it can also burn you out if that's all you do and you compulsively work on it. It can become a problem. It can lead to other compulsive problems. I mean, you got to pace yourself. and you gotta do what's comfortable. And yeah, it's gonna get uncomfortable sometimes, but knowing the limit of, okay, I've done enough research for today, I need to take a break, I need to let my brain enjoy something else, so you don't get sucked back into that world accidentally by triggering yourself by looking up so much material related around abuse. Next thing about early recovery I have to say is set realistic goals for yourself. Early recovery is crazy with all of the things that you find out and all of the feelings that you're experiencing. There's going to be a lot of tears. There's going to be a lot of days that you don't know what you're going to do, where you're stuck in bed all day. So knowing what you are capable of doing and what you're not capable of doing. So, long-term goal, better self-esteem. You want to feel better about yourself. You want to have energy throughout the day. How do we get there? How do you get to having better self-esteem? One example, I will compliment myself once a day for a week. See if it helps. Try throwing some nice words at yourself. And when you try to shoot them down, or that other voice in your head tries to shoot them down, try combating a little bit and being like, hey, get out of here. I'm not terrible. I'm not a piece of shit. That's not me. I am good. I am trying to be better, and I will be. Giving yourself that encouragement and giving yourself that pat on the back will help. It takes practice, it is hard, and if you forget to compliment yourself, that's okay. Our brains are always wandering and on a mystical journey, so keeping them on track is gonna be hard. Keep those goals small, and then when you achieve them, do little celebrations for it. And soon enough, you're gonna be achieving bigger goals, and you're gonna be like, whoa, how did I get here? Oh yeah, it's all those tiny little goals that you mount on top of each other in order to feel better. And it does help. Next thing, very important. It is okay to have intense feelings, especially when it feels like you shouldn't be having those intense feelings. What do I mean by that? For example, it wasn't that bad. I shouldn't be upset about it. Eliminate that train of thought in your head. Don't be comparing your trauma to anybody else's. Don't be going, oh, well, I shouldn't feel sad about this because other children have been through worse. Or I shouldn't feel sad about this because it's not that big of a deal. It is. If you feel that intently about it, that is a purpose. And those are real feelings. And it's really hard to get out of the brainwashing of, oh, my feelings don't matter. I mean, it's like you're in a cult where that's where you were taught from a little child is your feelings don't matter. But you got to switch that thinking around, and that takes work, and that takes practice. So, and it's just about being aware of it. Next time your brain comes in with, oh, you shouldn't be feeling that bad about whatever happened. That's stupid that you feel so intensely about it. Be like, no, there's a reason why I'm feeling intensely about it. Okay? I'm not weird. I'm not abnormal and illogical. This is happening for a reason. Okay? Like, you talk back to that voice, because that voice, it's a bully. And you don't need another bully in your head. My last bit of advice or experience, I guess you could say, for early recovery, because I feel like I don't have enough experience to give advice for everybody for recovery. Everybody's different, but this writing exercise helped me out tons with a bunch of triggers. It's like I wiped out a bunch of triggers in one fellow swoop, and not wipe them out like, oh, they don't affect me at all anymore, but I have a lot more control over grounding myself. I have a lot more control over certain things when it came to really bad triggers from childhood. So, what you're going to do, or what I would do for you, is split your life up into 6 different sections. For me, I did this by different towns that we lived in, because we moved out around a bit. So every 3 to 6 years was a different section for me. And then in those sections, write out 4 to 6 significant memories for each section. And significant, what comes to your mind the most? And the first 2 eras for me were so hard, because I realized how much I don't remember. It took me 2 weeks to get all of this writing done for this writing exercise. But it feels like the first week was just me trying to remember my childhood. And me like digging up in there. And that it actually helped some memories come out. And help me deal with those sort of in a direct way. So, you're going to write out those memories. From birth to now, 6 sections, 4 to 6 memories, and then after you do all of that, you read through your memories, and then you can write out a little summary of what life lesson you learned at the time. When you were a kid and that was happening, what was your brain translating that into? And then you can compare that to what life lesson would you learn from that now? Now that you're older, now that you're wiser, and you look at it, is your perception of it different or the same? And doing this, oh my goodness, it helped me a lot. Part of it is I really like puzzles, and I really like formats. I really like laying everything out. Like I was a student who loved syllabuses and color coding all my notes and all my post-it notes. So this exercise really helped it click in my brain, and it really helped me make tremendous progress. Conclusion would be, recovery is a crazy roller coaster, and it is not linear. And early recovery is full of intense emotion, intense happiness, intense sadness, intense anger. And if you're going through early recovery right now, first of all, welcome to recovery communities. I have a list of resources on one of my other videos that you should also check out, and they helped me a ton in my early recovery, which is pretty much why I'm doing this now. Is because I want to help out too. And I wasn't able to for so long, but I finally gotten to a place where I can talk and not hate myself for it. So, welcome to recovery communities. If you're a vet, if you've been in recovery for a while, don't worry. I'm going to be making videos for you guys too, because this entire recovery process is a journey. And it is intense. And I just want to say I'm proud of you recovery people. I'm proud of the progress that you're making and the research that you're doing. I know it's hard, and I know that it is intense. So, enough blabbering on, I guess. I hope you guys have a good one.